very much. Thanks for having me. Thanks for inviting me. Everyone doing okay? You okay? I'm going to talk to the slides, if that's okay, so I'll be back and forth. My name's John. I'm a Baptist pioneer minister, and I moved down to Poole in Dorset in 2018, and with the remit to start from scratch and listen to God. I've got 3 kids, and I'm a big surfer. And the surf is nearby, so I'm a happy man. And as you can see, I've ended up planting an expression of church called Ocean Church. And what I wanted to do is simply introduce you to a tool that I found very, very helpful, and I hope that you will too. And through it, I want to tell my story, and I'd like to quickly go through 5 things that that are on our mind and heart, and principles that we're trying to use that I hope you would find helpful as well as us. So if I can have the next slide. Has anybody seen... Sorry? Have I got a clicker? Yes, man. Yes. Brilliant. There we go. Has anybody seen this before? 1 person. Yeah, brilliant. Okay, so, but yeah. 2 people. Brilliant. Okay. So this is a tool called the Pioneer Spectrum. It was developed by Paul Bradbury and Tina Hodgett, who are Anglican pioneer ministers. Nobody likes to see a whole load of interlocking circles. I appreciate that. Nobody appreciates a Venn diagram, but here it is. And the idea actually is quite simple. If you are engaged with somebody who is a pioneer, they are and will look different to other people that you might meet. And when you encounter them, this tool is really helpful to talk about expectations, to talk about theology, to talk about the kind of things that they're interested in and what church means. So over there where the tea stain is, I don't know why it's got a tea stain, right at the far left-hand side, is traditional Sunday morning church. Okay, and from then on, as you journey right, like the arrow says here, you increase cultural distance and the need for contextualization. All right, so you start off here with traditional church plants with the first circle. Can people read this, by the way? Can you read it at the back? It's a bit tricky at the back. Okay, so the first circle says you put a model of church in a new place. So this is when you're doing church in a school hall or a cafe or something like that. So you replicate. Then the next one along is Pioneers Adapt. So that's your messy churches, your cafe churches, your forest churches, your breakfasts at 9s, all of those kind of things. And then as you go further through, Pioneers venture into a host context. They serve, build relationship, offer discipleship, and crucially, they allow the gospel response to shape a new ecclesial community. And then Pioneers venture onto the edges of postmodern culture, exploring spirituality alongside fellow seekers and nomads. And then lastly, outside of this box, Pioneers venture into secular space to influence and transform it in the name of Christ. So that is kind of kingdom-orientated social enterprises and charities and things like that. So I wanted to use that to talk about our journey. And so I think we started here. When we moved to Poole, what we found is that loads of people love the water, like me. And for me, the water is one of the places in which I encounter God profoundly and have always wanted to help give language so that other people can explore the water in that way as well. Some people that we met in our neighbourhood were saying we don't have the equipment or the experience or the cash to access the water that's on our back garden. Other people were saying, do you know what, I've got a paddleboard, I've got kayaks, I've got surfboards kicking around in our spare room or wherever, and you can have them. So we thought, this is quite interesting, why don't we combine the two? I've long been a fan of the sharing economy. I love tool libraries and the toy libraries, and I think there's even kitchen libraries, I think, as well, where you can share kitchen stuff. So we said, why don't we start a social enterprise called the Water Sports Library, where instead of books, people come and they borrow kayaks, surfboards, water sports stuff, basically, that has been either donated or shared by the local community. And that's Paul Dawson in the top left-hand side there. He said, Johnny, I love what you're trying to do. I've got 3 kayaks just hanging around in my garden. Can I donate them to you? And so we were like, yeah, man. And that kind of kicked it off. So when Boris in COVID said it was all right to go out and do stuff with your families, I think it was May 2020, we opened the library and we had only about 8 or 9 craft, and we had 150 people use our little online system to borrow these kind of crafts and get out on the water. So this is a registered business. It's a CIC, for those who are interested. It's a community interest company. So it's quite close to a charity, but it's designed to be a business. And then we basically started working backwards. As you can imagine, I didn't just come to Poole to run a business. We started meeting people who came through the doors and said, oh, we've never been surfing, we've never been paddleboarding, whatever. And so we were like, okay, well, let's buddy up and take you out. So we started taking people out on the water. Obviously, we don't have a license to do that, so we did that just as mates and just families getting together. Our family met, she's not on the photo, but this lady called Sharon borrowed a paddleboard with us. She says, I've got real serious mental health issues. I'm a mother of 3, and life isn't so good. And then after she borrowed the paddleboard, about a couple of weeks later, she phoned me up. She goes, John, I've got no idea how to use this paddleboard, so I don't even know how to blow it up. So we said, fine, let's meet up together, and we just began this kind of regular meetups on the water where we could talk with her about her life as well as how to blow up a paddleboard. And this increased. At that point, there was other Christians really coming alongside us who were like, oh, we're interested in what you're doing. We had a lot of support from SCBA from the start, and we had interest from local Baptist churches who all supported us. And so we started running retreats. So we sort of gathered a group of, there was people who were sort of a mixed group of people in terms of belief. We got them all out into the harbour on kayaks, and we did centering prayer. So we said to them, think of a word that describes God to you, and just focus on that for 20 minutes whilst you bob about in the harbour, and then let's get back and talk about it. And as you can imagine, they came back with all sorts of really fun and interesting ways of describing their spiritual life, which really encouraged us. And then over the other end of the spectrum, we started experimenting with well-being. By this point, we were trying to find sort of more theological language, I guess, to begin linking, like bridge language. So we were trying to find, well-being and mental health is a really, they're fascinating bridges to the water and to the natural world. And so we were starting to go, well, what's God's involvement in that bridge language? And how then can we do things in which we can begin to be almost like tourist guides going, actually, that thing over there that you're talking about, well, I sort of see it a little bit like this, and this is my perspective on it. What do you reckon? So by that point, we're in that kind of space in church life. And then eventually, one thing led to another, and we formed a regular worshipping community called Ocean Church. And I think we registered with SCBA. I think it was Maundy Thursday. I got a text last year saying that we're legit. So we were absolutely delighted to become a sort of a church. And this is what our church looks like. So our vision is simple. We want to reimagine church as a living, breathing adventure. And for us, that word adventure is really crucial. We mean it practically, and we also mean it theologically. We want to be people who are on our way somewhere. There is a sort of nomadic element to us. We are completely outdoors. Well, actually, we're mostly outdoors. It does rain, and we do have groups that meet in homes as well. But we're mostly outdoors. If you look at the left-hand side there, that's kind of just a picture of some of the things really that we do. And at its widest point, Ocean Church's sort of outreach, evangelism to the community is largely through equipment and experiences. That's what we do. So we still run the water sports library. We're still meeting loads and loads of people. We've received a lot of funding since we started, and so it's more established. And through the equipment borrowing, we're still buddying up with people. We're still meeting with people. Families still come through the door, and so we've had this amazing time on the water. And we're like, that's brilliant. Tell us about it. And then experiences, what we found is we seem to be, I don't know if you agree with this, we seem to be past the age of angry atheism. Do you think that? We're sort of like, we're getting over Richard Dawkins a little bit. Do you know what I mean? Slightly. And people seem to be open to kind of spiritual experiences. So what we found is we run these sort of, experiences for people, and we invite anybody and everybody into them. And we'll generally stick on a Facebook ad and we'll encourage people to kind of sign up. And then we encourage people, whether you're a Christian or you're not, to begin reflecting on that experience after you've done it. So an example of this would be we did a dip a day for Lent. So we basically said we're going to be cold water dipping most days during Lent. There was someone at some location around Poole for 6 days out of 7 every week through Lent. And if you signed up, you got these kind of devotions, which sort of led from dipping, meeting other dippers, famous dippers, through to the health stuff, through to mental health stuff, and then eventually, gently, to the story of Jesus walking towards the cross and what all of that means. So that's an example. We run gatherings on the beach. We do a breakfast and we do an afternoon gathering. We meet on Saturdays, and the main point of them is to link nature to the Christian faith. To provide a really strong connection, like a missional community would really, between the natural world and the Christian faith. That's really important to us. Then at a deeper level, we've got our smaller groups, very similar to how many of you guys would, I'm sure. But lastly, we wanted to say that church for us is about life together. And that is crucial for us. It's not about the gatherings, or they are useful, but for us it is about trying to get to a way of life. And so we talk about habits. We've got 3 habits that we try and help people adopt. And they are to eat with somebody outside the life of the church once a week or more, to regularly connect with God outside, and to connect with Jesus as a household regularly. And this has been important for us. Back to this drawing here. I think if you're sort of looking to put church in a new place, the question is there, like, how do we do church somewhere else? But it's been important for me in my story to ask this question: what is God doing among these people, and how do we respond? And I wanted to bring this up because we've actually lost people along the way over this question, and we've lost potential leaders. And we've lost potential church members as well. This is the question of, like, some people want to ask the question, how much of this is real church? We'll get onto that later. But that's been quite a dividing line for us, and quite a hurtful line that we've had to kind of work through. And I think a really important question if you're talking to people who want to set up church. So here are my 5 very brief things that we're trying to do. We're trying to change the packaging. For me, this isn't that radical, but for other people, this is kind of, it does appear quite radical to some. So like I say, we don't meet on a Sunday, because frankly, if you're starting something up, Sundays are taken, either by other churches, or they're taken by DIY, or they're taken by sport. So we meet on a Saturday, and for us and the people who come along, that kind of long stretch from 3 till about 7 we do seems to fit the bill. We don't have a building, which we're thoroughly enjoying at the moment. We're glad not to have one except the library. We try and do all age all the time. That started out of necessity, and it ended up being very intentional. And obviously, when you do all age, you know what it's like. You have to. It means a lot for communication, the way we do gatherings, what kind of language we use, all the rest of it. And I don't know why I wrote that as something important, but we don't do paper. It doesn't seem to be. Paper doesn't work on the beach. We don't do. Well, that's what we found, but it's not that important. I don't know why I put it up. We found it was really important to niche down, and this is counter to. Obviously, we want to make church inclusive. But at the same time, when you're starting something new, we found it was incredibly important to know what we're trying to do, know what we're getting at, know how we're doing it, and not do the other stuff. That was really important for us. And I think I've got a previous experience from church life, and I think so much time and effort can become generalised, and I think that we can miss people when we're not. when we're not targeted and not specific. And for us, being exclusive, when you look at the life of Jesus, he worked in a particular place in a particular time. He didn't heal everybody that he had the option to. He didn't work with everybody that he had the choice to. And he said the way is narrow. And so there's lots of times when Jesus chooses to act intentionally and specifically. And that's what we're trying to do. And so we know that Ocean Church isn't going to be for everybody. Some people can't even get there, And we've got some people within the life of the church who have just started talking to people like, I love Ocean Church, John, but I really don't get on with the shore. I don't like standing on the shoreline. I'm like, what's going on, man? Why are you here? So this is our Facebook stats for Facebook, for our water sports library. And we were like, who are the people who are getting involved with what we're doing? And we've got 2,545 followers, which gives a slight indication of who is interested in what we're doing. And it's quite clearly women between the ages of 35 and 54. They were the people who were looking online and using our Facebook page. I appreciate maybe this is a Facebook thing, and maybe men don't use Facebook as much. I get that. But it gave us an indication. So we started asking, well, what does this demographic look like? What is the struggle there? Why are they coming to the water sports library? And what is a gospel response specifically to this type of person? This is from an ad that we ran, again, on Facebook for a pilgrimage that we did. I mentioned that we do experiences that we invite everybody into. This was for a pilgrimage. It's quite early on in the ad. We ended up having about, 3,000 clicks or something. And the graph looked exactly the same at the end. So, for the people who were at that end, women over the age of 65, a few of them came along, and they said to us, interestingly, that they had lost their husbands, or they had their husbands in an age where they were deteriorating, and they were re-finding a sense of adventure in their life. And I found that absolutely fascinating. My third point is experiment with how decisions are made. We all know that discerning the will of Christ goes smoothly in every church, doesn't it? And so it's my opinion that the membership and the members' meeting is challenging. And I've been interested in other tools that can work alongside the church meeting in order to help people make decisions, particularly to get children involved and get people from the margins involved with how we make decisions. And so I found this comes out of self-management stuff. I think the book is Reinventing Organisations. And it's the advice process. And it's quite simple. If anybody in Ocean Church wants to change something or make it better, if they've got an improvement that they want to make or whatever, we ask them to do three things. They need to get advice from God. They need to get advice from anybody with more experience. And they need to get advice from anybody who will be affected by their idea. And then what happens is they come back to the main meeting, having been on this journey, and they say the advice that they have been given. Crucially, when they ask advice, nobody is allowed to veto the idea, and nobody is allowed to give it the thumbs up either. All right? It's just advice. Then they come back to the main meeting, they explain what's happened, and then we ask them the question, okay, so what are you going to do about that now? We're early on in this, but we have had a couple of ideas come through. We're sort of ironing out the process. How does money work? We're saying at the moment, like anything up to £100. Make sure you involve the treasurer in the advice process. But even children, have access to the money and to making a decision. 4, you've all seen that. What's the new bit of research? What's it called again? Quiet revival, thank you. Yeah, quiet revival. And I found that interesting. One of the things that struck me was around how it was Catholicism and Pentecostalism that were particularly seeing growth. And what do they have in common? They are experiential expressions of Christianity. So for us, it's really important, and it has been since we started, to try and get Christianity out of our heads and into our bodies. So right from the experiences, the do first, think later approach that we've got, all the way through to our habits that kind of mark our life together, we are trying to focus on formation over information. I hope that makes sense. And lastly, I wanted to give myself a sense of permission, I think, and this is something that I have struggled with over the time that I've been doing the stuff that I've been doing. And for anybody in your churches who might be experiencing the same thing, the thing that I had to keep telling myself is, you are doing the real thing. I think the temptation, back to this diagram here, when church is sort of in that kind of space, the temptation is to go, okay, how do we do that? How do we, at whatever end of the spectrum you're operating at, it seems to me, and it felt like to me, that the end goal is to get people into church on a Sunday morning. And I just want to say, no, that isn't always the end goal. And for me, it is about helping people with calling, helping people with cash, and helping people with new forms of leadership to express new ways of doing church differently. I think it's really important for me. And like I've said before, I've lost leaders and I've lost potential helpers over this very thing because we're not doing enough of the real thing. And I want to say, no, man, what we're doing is the real thing. So for us, it was really important that we weren't a parachurch organisation. Even the language of missional community, which I love, I felt it's like sub-Christian language. And so we wanted to be church. We wanted to be the fullness of church. And you guys know, like, mission-shaped church came out, 20 years ago? You know? So we've got the language, we've got the theology, we just now, in my opinion, need the systems. That's all from me. Thank you very much. I think my question is, what do you like, and what might you feel challenged about by what I've said?